Okay, friends, I think we're back on here. Um, yeah, I was just informed that we were officially not on the air. However, I can tell you my camera was on. The YouTube says live. It was counting the time, and everything seemed to be all right. Okay, now it says we're back on. So from my end of it, um, it gave me the option to end the stream, but it says we were live and it was counting like it is now. So for all I could tell, we were still on. So I regret that. I would not blame Mr. E because he actually has supported the channel. So that wasn't him. And we were, I don't know, I had maybe, I don't know if I can find them on my phone, but I did have some comments that I had not been able to get to, and probably it's not even uploaded yet. Okay, well maybe I can dig out those comments here. So I am back on. Yeah, I don't understand that, guys, because everything here indicated it was on, and if we're on now, it looked exactly the same. So I just started over. So we can continue. Yeah, all those comments where everybody left. Well, I don't know. I didn't do it. It did happen once before we even went on, and so evidently it happened. I clicked try again, came back on, and it didn't. It didn't work, even though it looked like it. So anyway, the topic tonight has been hitting the male wall, and that is appropriate for this channel because a lot of men feel that they don't hit the wall, or they hit it so late that they can still go get a woman pretty much anywhere and at any time. And the statements I read from Mr. E, and I would agree with it, that does appear to be changing. So we were, had a lot of good comments that we were getting into, and unfortunately, we got cut off. So one thing I can continue with is thank you. We're back on here. Mr. E made the comment there's some correlation to age and the ability of not being able to find a wife in your desired age range. Now, this is me speaking. I agree with Mr. E. With more competition in the Philippines, men might do well to look for a Filipina over 25 to improve their chances of a good marriage. Yet, many guys only want the prettiest, sexiest Filipinas. Now, I think you can find these at the pretty and beautiful Filipinas, even at higher ages, with maturity. And I think Filipinas tend to age very well. I thought my wife was pretty when I pursued her, but I also felt like she was mature and serious, and I liked that. So unfortunately, I think we lost everybody before, so I think I will just continue with this and see how it goes. But there is some good information here. May just have to do it, tomorrow or next Monday or something like that. Very possible. So we'll just see. I'll continue here, and we'll see how it goes. That was the first time that's ever happened. From my end, I apologize. It looks like nothing happened. I hit try again. Everything was counting. Everything was live, but it wasn't live. So first time for everything. And it happened before I went on, too. I thought that wouldn't happen again. Yeah, thank you, Michael and Heidi. Thanks for coming back. Hopefully others can come back too, but it's such a nice day. It's probably nice where you are too. I don't blame you for going out for a walk or doing some yard work or something like that. Proverbs 31, charm is deceitful and beauty is fleeting. Thanks, Michael. That's another verse that I was thinking about yesterday or today. These things, when you start, I guess, preparing for a live stream and you've taken notes, it's kind of on your mind a lot. And that's another thing that I was thinking about. Because, when you're younger, like in your 20s, it's the temptation to make bad choices is astoundingly great. It's very high. And the sex appeal and the beauty, it can just become, and it probably is overwhelming and hard to escape unscathed. Um, but at that age, you're not thinking, hey, this woman is not going to look like this. You know, my mom watches the Turner Classic Movies, and so you see these younger female actors when they're young, and they look, you know, they're Hollywood actresses. Then you see an interview with them, you know, much later in life, and I know it's hard to imagine your spouse or some young, you know, attractive woman looking different when she gets older. But yeah, uh, that's the thing. It's charm, beauty. It's fleeting, and that's why my point is this: when even a it doesn't matter, a young guy, because an older guy can get a younger guy too. In the Philippines, the character never ages in the sense that character never declines. Character does not depreciate, does not degenerate like beauty does. That's why character is so important. Because if you marry someone that's you're attracted to that has character, okay, great. Um, you should know over time her looks are going to change. And if you marry her for her looks, then what? But if she's got real character, that's not going anywhere. And you know, that's something to think about. Um, so I think too, over 25, that does help your chances. Now I was saying these Filipinas that are attractive can be found even at higher ages and with some maturity. And I was attracted to my wife. But there are studies that show the closer together the ages are of the couple, the better their chance for success. So, and that is typical. And there are studies that say that. However, not all of them do. Some studies claim that men are happier marrying a much younger woman. Okay, but they also claim that that satisfaction diminishes over time. Now, here are some comments from an article that I'm going to link in the description box. This is according to a 2014 study from a place called Emory University. Couples with a 1-year age difference have a mere 3% chance of getting divorced. When you bump the age gap up to 5 years, which doesn't sound like a whole lot to me, the chance of a divorce goes up to 18%. That's almost 1 in 5. A 10-year age difference is 39% likelihood or chance of ending in divorce. A 20-year age gap, get ready for this, has a jaw-dropping 95% chance of ending in divorce. If you have this is, I think, here in the U.S., 20-year age gap has a jaw-dropping 95% chance of ending in divorce. Yet, you know, Bruce Senator, who was on here before we lost connection, 20 years of marriage, we just celebrated 4 years. Now, they analyzed over 3,000 couples for this study and found that the larger the age gap between a couple, the more likely they are to get divorced. So it seems that a 1-year age gap is the ideal difference in a romantic relationship. Of course, couples with a 1-year age difference can and do still go through breakups and divorces. Hugo Myalon, one of the researchers behind the study, addressed the fact that while this data shows correlation, it doesn't necessarily imply causation. It could just be that the types of couples with those characteristics are the types of couples who are, on average, more likely to divorce for other reasons, he said, according to something called The Independent. Research conducted by Christian Rudder, co-founder of OkCupid, suggests that female users tend to look for men around their age, or maybe a year or two older. Men, however, prefer women in their early 20s, regardless of their age. If they age another 5 or 10 years, they're still attracted to the same look of women. Now, it says this choice may not be ideal for a lasting relationship, as the data from Emory shows. Now, I'll read Michael's comments, and I'm going to read probably the most important thing here that I'll say the whole night. Uh, Another perspective with American women, beauty is fleeting. Worldly women don't know this. Yeah, I suppose it's tough to age gracefully, um, and that can cause some people to be jealous and antagonistic. A man brings a Filipina over to the Western country, and they see he's with this younger woman. They start tossing that around in their mind, and they have all kinds of bad thoughts towards them. They think their looks will carry them until eternity. Um, then they wonder why they are 45 plus divorced, sitting home alone with their cats. Yeah, well, this is the thing. That beauty is going to fade, and if a woman out there doesn't realize that when she hits the wall, that's going to happen earlier probably than most men. She needs to have more going for her than her looks. Um, that's just, and a man isn't probably going to be attracted to a woman that's working all the time, burying herself in her job, um, because once they hit the wall, they don't have character and stuff like that going, and good values and qualities. That's why I say it's going to be tough for them, very, very tough. Taking their looks for granted, living the feminist attitude. They should be taught by older women, honey, those looks aren't going to last forever, and I do think the looks are there kind of by nature to attract a man to them when they're at their physical prime, when their beauty is at its peak, so that they get married when they're younger. Because if they wait till they've done all these other things and they kind of, hit the wall, then they very easily could miss out big time. Without God in relationships, it will never work. That's the way I feel about us, Michael, Isa, and I. I do believe there was a lot of divine intervention in us being able to get married so quickly. However, look, we were not an overnight sensation. I labored for many years trying to formulate what I needed to do to be a good husband, and what to look for and what to avoid. And I mean, it was a long, long time, but I struck when the iron was hot, and we got married very quickly. But listen to this. This is what, from the same article that I will link here, about the what works. Well, about the age study here, and they're going to talk about what works, and I agree with it totally. No. Oh yeah, 1 year difference in age, 3% chance of divorce. That's what they said. Um, if your age gap is only with a 1 year age difference, they have a mere 3% chance of getting divorced. Just go up to 5 years, which doesn't seem that far off, then the chance of divorce goes up to 18%. And soon here, I'll tell you what the percentages are of the age gaps here in America. Phil's Phoenix, I learned a long time ago, figures may not lie, but liars figure. He then showed me how easily statistics could very easily be skewed to say whatever you wanted them to. I mean, there's so many variables that go into this. Thanks to you guys for coming back. I do appreciate it. Kind of a melancholy day today, but Isa's got the windows open down here. We got fresh air coming in. It's staying lighter out longer, so I've got some coffee, so I think I'll be good to go here. Thanks everybody for coming back as we do this and we get more into it. Who knows you got to look behind the statistics. I mean, but listen to this. We'll peel back a little bit here of what works, and this is from that article. I'll link it from that 2004 study. It says the overall success of any relationship, age gap included, depends on a few basic components. And I don't think anybody's going to disagree with this. Okay? The overall success of any relationship depends on a few basic components. They are shared values and beliefs, healthy communication and conflict resolution, trust, intimacy, and the ability to support one another's goals. None of these behaviors, they say, have to do with age. Now, although a large age difference between two people can mean, different views of the world and thus the relationship, end quote. So I must repeat the last part of that. The overall success of any relationship depends on a few basic components: shared values and beliefs, healthy communication and conflict resolution, trust, intimacy, and the ability to support one another's goals. None of these behaviors have much to do with age. Now, if you've got a relationship with a Filipina, even if you do have a really big age gap, even if you are in a Western country, these sorts of things make all the difference. You can't just say, "Here's my age." Now, it's going to work out or it's not going to work out. It's far more complex than that, as Phil Phoenix alluded to. Mark Metz, hello from Michigan. Hello from Nebraska. Michigan just lost their basketball coach. Mark, I don't know if you follow college basketball. College sports is big here in Nebraska, but Jim Boeheim is going to Cleveland Cavaliers, I think. So I'm sure that's a big shock to sports fans out there. Michigan's done really well in basketball lately. No, B-Red. Mr. E, even though he probably has the capability of hijacking the stream, I don't think he did it. I think he's trustworthy. I got to trust him, a little bit. So Mark Metz, thanks for joining us today. We're talking about hitting the male wall. That does happen. Put the at in first. I never knew how you do that. Oh, you're a Purdue Boilermaker. Okay, well then Purdue, well, yeah, they did really good in basketball. And I think they kept their coach too, kept their football coach. And that's going to help your sports teams. I think you've been pouring a lot of money into your athletics, so that's a good thing. So with those, shared values, beliefs, and so on, isn't that what I've been saying all along on Love Beyond the Sea? You look for shared values and beliefs in the dating stage, usually online. While you're single, you work on conflict resolution. You learn to trust and commit to intimacy, especially emotional intimacy, as we learned several live streams ago. Then when you're married, you support one another's goals. And, I always want to, I told Isa, I want to help make your dreams come true. She's not going to say, well, I want to be the first woman on the moon or something like that. She's got realistic, down to earth dreams. And if I can support her goals, then I think more likely she'll support mine, like this YouTube channel. So I need to catch up here. Yeah, Purdue Boilermaker. Mark Metz, you're 62, and your wife, Neng, 44, get along great, just like we're the same age. Yeah, you probably don't even think of yourselves anymore as having a large age gap. And we were just talking about statistics on that. Let's see, let's round yours up to 20 years. Well, you're almost in that where 95% chance of ending in divorce, Bruce Senator's certainly past that. I think as time goes on, probably relationships should be getting, stronger, getting more solidified. Yeah. Married 9 months. I have known her well for 5 years. Yeah, I feel that way about, other people will look at us probably and say, oh, they got a big age gap, but I sure don't anymore. And Mr. E commented here, it is now much harder for older men to get Filipinas, and they must work harder to overcome the stereotypical perception of Westerners that they're players, that will only get worse. Now, I say the good thing here for foreign men is the Filipina who is closer to 30 is likely to be more mature, and someone that a 55 and older foreign man should be kissing her little feet to have a chance to marry her. The stereotypical perception of Westerners is that of a playboy, unable to commit, just looking for fun. And Filipinas know that. They've been exposed to that. They've been hurt many times before. And so if they see a guy, let's say he's sincere and he's really looking for marriage, I mean, you can get married as quick as you want to, I would think. If you want a wife and you want her for good reasons, I don't think in the Philippines it has to take 5 or 6 or 7 years. I mean, we got married in 54 days, and I would have done it in 40 if I could have, but we had to wait by law, 10 extra days. I didn't have a passport at the time. We could have got it done quicker. I wonder what the statistics are on how fast people got married and the chance of getting divorced. Maybe I should look that up sometime. Yeah, Mark, I feel the same way as you. I want to give her a bigger life and make her dreams come true. When you do that for a woman, if she's a good woman, decent woman, like I've said many times before, she's a responder. She responds to good treatment, unselfishness and sacrifice, and she responds to the opposite. I always use, probably shouldn't, Charles Manson as a example of one who can influence a woman in a wrong way. Women can be easily influenced. I mean, it was Eve who was enticed to sin first, even though, as I said last time, Adam kind of had to take responsibility for that because he didn't protect her, as we were talking about earlier. So yeah, I'm glad to hear you say that, Mark, because you are able to do things for her that probably other people can't. And so your wife will appreciate that tremendously. Phil's of Phoenix, thanks for coming back. I don't know what knocked the power out. It's an absolutely beautiful day here. Cindy and I have a 21-year gap. My first wife, I had a few months age gap, and last only a few months. See, there, broke the statistic right there. My second wife, 3-year gap, and it limped along for 20 years, but still ended in divorce. Mark Metz, honestly, I don't think it should matter how old either, or as long as they are both happy. The thing about that is that happiness may, well, Mark, you weren't here for the first time, but there was a study saying that men are happier marrying a younger woman. However, that degree of satisfaction, they say, in statistics, it tends to decline the longer they are married. And that's probably because of practical situations that you probably should, think about. Should you be married for, 20 or 30 years? I mean, you don't know. And one of the reasons I tell Isa, I want to be the best husband I can to you. I don't know how long I've got. I don't know when somebody texting is going to kill my wife in a car accident. I worry about that all the time. Somebody died in an accident on this major intersection here just a mile away last year. So much texting going on here. So when you get married, yeah, but things can be a little bit more challenging over time, just realistically. Although I'm sure you believe like I believe, I think Isa will take care of me. In fact, the other day she said in the Philippines, I'll have her whole family to help take care of me, because in the Philippines they take care of their elderly out there, and I believe her. Isa wanted my mother to live with us here, and so we bought her townhome, and we're taking care of her bills and all that. And she still helps us out. Bless her for that. But Isa wanted us, she said, your mom can't live by herself. Who's going to take care of her? So, yeah, Isa convinced me to have my mom live with us, and it's been good for my mom. It's been good for all of us, actually. Yeah, B-Rad, James Kelly PV, women are responders. They follow your lead. Well, I think that's the way it should be. They will react to what I do. Now, if I said, hey, hon, I've always wanted to start, I don't know, drinking or start using drugs, or, they just legalized marijuana, let's go smoke a joint or something like that, and I start kind of coercing her, or she feels like, well, it's my husband, and then she starts doing that, or I start putting bad ideas in her head. We talked about protecting her Filipina earlier when she comes to America. One way I can protect her is not put bad ideas in her head. Because if I start to stray, I believe, she could follow me, because, I think women are designed by nature to be following a man. And that's why, if we do a live stream in a couple of weeks, we'll talk about submission, because a viewer wanted me to do a video on that. And I think I'll do a once and for all a video on live on submission, what it is, what it isn't, what to do when it doesn't happen, and so on, and where it comes from. So part of this, I think, is just in our nature. I know you look at the feminist movement, women don't want to listen to men. They don't want to be under the authority of a man. And I think they're supposed to. I think that's what the Bible teaches. And we'll look at that probably in 2 weeks. We'll do a live stream, so if people want to come and throw tomatoes at me, or agree with me, they can. But look forward to that in a couple of weeks. So yeah, I do. I mean, I'm supposed to lead. If I don't lead, then my wife is apt to follow somebody else's lead. And the Bible says the wives are to be submissive to their own husbands. If I don't, somebody else may step in to fill my shoes, to fill that void, very subtly, and that could be bad. Then I wouldn't be protecting her. So yeah, I'm glad you say that. I do. I heard that once on a sermon. It's like, well, yeah, of course they are, and you can see that. You got bad guys. They can. I don't know what Whitney Houston was like before she met Bobby Brown, but it sure seemed like things went downhill. And I apologize if that's not the way it happened. That's the way it looks sometimes. Music people. 15-year age gap. She's 30 and you're 45. Well, according to statistics here in America, apparently Westerner with Westerner, great chance that's not going to work out. But if you have these shared values and beliefs, healthy communication, conflict resolution, trust, intimacy, and the ability to support one another's goals, you should be just fine. Absolutely should be just fine. And yeah, Mark, it does make a big difference, U.S. Or Philippines. It's more challenging here. As I said earlier, before we lost power or something, I didn't have a choice. I'm not ready to live in the Philippines. I have moved my retirement date up quite a bit so that we can go when I'm 62, 4.5 years, Lord willing. Then we won't have to be worried about that at all. But we've survived 4 years, so well, I'm not really concerned about it. Oh, yeah, Phils, you were married roughly the same time that Isa and I were. 4 years. You have more stability in 4 years than the others ever had. Yeah, I think we've built a strong foundation by this time. I think the first couple years, I would say, I probably never said it before, but you marry Filipina, wherever you are, the first couple years are going to be the most challenging. That's the time you're going to argue about stupid things. Those are the times your feelings are going to get hurt. You're going to be a little bit more sensitive to, disagreements, and you don't understand each other quite yet. You got to survive those first couple years. I think our third year was better than our second, and our fourth year has been our best yet, because I think we're learning, what to do and what not to do. what didn't work before. Let's not do that again. Yeah, irony to submission is American women are too dominant. Well, they've become that way. And what man, would feel like, hey, I'm going to marry this woman and submit to her? That's not the order. We'll see that in a couple of weeks. That's not the order. And I don't care if people say it works. It's still, the order is the husband is the leader. Now, he may make mistakes, and we'll talk about that. It's a tough, big responsibility for the man to be the head of his wife. It's not just, hey, I'm in charge, you do what I want. No, that's not it. He's got a big responsibility, and we'll talk about that. But yeah, women, wives should submit to their husbands. Every wife, every wife. I believe that, but I don't want to say too much about that next live stream. Yeah, just look in the movies, the dominance of the dominant roles that women are playing now, television, movies, all that stuff. B-Rad, James Kelly PV, agreed at Michael and Heidi. American women have become too masculine. They're trying their hardest not to be women or feminine. They're trying to be men. And it's really sad. And you might hear that and say, well, that's ridiculous. I don't think so. I've seen it myself. The last time I was at the gym before I hurt my neck and haven't been able to go in a couple of years, there were some women there had to be on steroids and they were reasonably attractive facially, but you could tell a woman's body does not have the testosterone to put on the mass that these women had. Now, I don't know why they would think that would be attractive to a man. I think generally it would not be. I don't know why they would be doing it. I just don't get it. Sometimes it seems like, they don't want to dress feminine. They don't want to have long, beautiful, silky black hair like a Filipina has, trying to be men in different ways, short hair, lots of tattoos, lots of tattoos. I don't mean just a token tattoo. I'm talking lots of tattoos. Body art, I think they call it. Hitting the weights, drinking, stuff like that. They're kind of picking up habits that men have been known for. Why? I don't know. I don't know where that started. Mark, Nang respects my role, but I'm not sure if I lead or not. With her there, never has come a point where I feel like I need to lead. Well, you probably are. You just don't realize it. There are vocal leaders, like in sports, and there are leaders by example. One way or another, the husband has to lead his wife. A lot of that will just be through the way he treats her and being unselfish and being considerate of her and protecting her and being faithful to her and teaching her, not that she's a child, but teaching her with your life what's important and what matters and being consistent about that. You see, then you're leading her. Then other people try to sneak in and she knows, hey, that's wrong. That's not the way my husband is, and I like the way my husband is. So I think you probably are. Bob, I like your icon there. Just plain white circle. Been with my Filipino almost 30 years. It was dumb luck. In retrospect, determining a woman's level of selfishness and so on. Well, unless you just eeny, meeny, miny, mo, you must have been looking for something and had something that was appealing to you about her, probably more than just her looks. Mark, we were looking at going back this summer. Her mother has poor health and she misses her home and family. But it turns out she has cancer and we will need to stay here for the health insurance. Well, that's too bad that happened. Cancer took my sister, and there there's people in the Philippines in like 20s and 30s dying of diabetes. I mean, um, that's I regret hearing that. I'm sorry, Mark. My we were talking about ages earlier. I'm about the age of my wife's papa, but her mother's, several years older than that. She's in good health. Um, the life expectancy last I saw in the Philippines was less than it is here in the United States, maybe by 5 to 10 years, for what it's worth. Phil's Phoenix, glad you were here and able to come back after the rain delay we had. Her level of selfishness is her expectations is 90% of it. Marriages are often doomed from day one. Well, yeah, good foundation. I guess can help withstand that. Certainly, I think the first couple of years are tough. Well, tougher because you'll make your dumbest mistakes and you'll be your most selfish. I think in the first couple of years, probably even with a Filipina. At least I was. I was guilty, and I had to learn. I like to share what I do wrong, so others, can learn from that. I guess that is why we're all married, looking to marry Filipinas or foreign women. Very feminine. Absolutely, they are. There are other nationalities known for their exotic beauty too. I really like the Filipinas. Um, Now, another comment that he made, getting back to this, Mr. E. Well, I'm not saying it's impossible for, say, someone like you to land a 21 and younger Filipina. It does require a lot of work, and more often than not, failure will be common occurrence, as many older men don't realize how much work it actually is and get blinded by her youthfulness. Um, it does take a lot of work. Now, my response to that was, if the man is closer to 40 than he is 50 or more, a younger woman like 20 makes more sense. I can't stand state hard and fast rules, but I do think 25 is as low as I would go for the sake of maturity and some life experience like working. And an age gap over 30 would be where I would draw the line. That's where things become more problematic. That's just me. If you want statistics or numbers for me, that's just the way I would do it. Having said that, I know men in those situations who seem to be doing well. So much of this depends on the particular Filipina and the man. Marrying a much younger Filipina is a risk, but if sought after, it should be a calculated risk. The younger the Filipina, the younger the man should be in general to have a good chance of success. The older the foreigner is, the older the Filipina should be to have a good chance of success, just all things being equal. That means the wider the age gap, the more problematic it can be for both of them. But by the same token, the more mature and responsible the foreigner is, the more likely he is to be able to win the affection of a younger Filipina. But again, there are practical considerations for such relationship, and I mentioned those in some videos I've done. Sexual compatibility being one of them. Let's not fool ourselves. Coming from a different generation being another. And I'm going to put a few related videos in the comment section for you when we're done about having a younger wife. I'll put a playlist in there that talks more about this, so we don't have to tonight. It's got 9 videos in that playlist. Can a young man find love in the Philippines? Generation gap in the younger wife, part 2, and then one called Is the Philippines Dead for Sexpats and Marriage-Minded Men? And then 29 ways to prevent your Filipina wife from becoming Americanized. I've got 214 videos. So this topic is very important to me about relationships with foreigners and Filipinas. It worked for me. You may have to take the brown pill and go overseas and look for a wife yourself. Yeah, feminism is not in the Filipino culture, thankfully, for now. Don't be surprised if it seeps in over time. Yeah, I'm glad God led me to that direction too. I heard about it for decades. I just thought I could get somebody here and it would be easier, but I'm glad I took the longer route, 9,800 miles. Yeah, the question is, will feminism affect the Philippines eventually? Hopefully it won't, though. Give enough time, you know, probably will. I mean, it starts somewhere, and they do copy uh, things from the West, and musically, and movies, and lyrics, and so on, and ideas, and it gets there. It takes time, but it probably will get there. Yeah. Yeah, I think eventually, Mark, Western culture will continue seeping in as it already has. As long as they don't allow divorce there for Filipino nationals, if that were to happen, yeah, it would melt down. I had the same thought too the other day, Michael and Heidi. Um, well, that's a tough thing. Because they don't have biblical divorce, people just cheat on them, cheat on each other. So is that, it just shows the mess the world is in, and how marriage has been challenged and corrupted in some ways. And marriage is a great thing. And that's why I encourage it. I don't encourage people to be blind about going into it. We'll see. I don't know how Duterte stands on that issue. And that's actually one reason I was happy to marry my wife in the Philippines. I figured it would be, she wouldn't want to divorce me or be able to, and I certainly don't want that to happen. A foreigner who's in his 60s and over and insists on only seeking a very young Filipina is asking for trouble. To me, if you've seen these, it's like those videos where somebody's trying to push the limits and break a world record, and it ends in disaster because they're acting recklessly by pushing the rules of nature. They try to break a speed record and end up crashing and dying. To me, it's like that when an older foreigner only wants the youngest, prettiest woman because he is entering very unnatural territory, and it's just not safe. Now, here's some statistics. 2013 U.S. current population survey, age difference percentage of all married couples in the United States. We're going to start in the middle and work our way down here. Yeah, what's the scuttlebutt on this right now? In the Mark says they do keep bringing it up, but the Catholic Church influenced society a great deal there. There was a recent push for divorce, and it has been over the last decade. Yeah, I hope that doesn't change as well. We talked about, these are percentages. Husband and wife within 1 year, the percentage in the United States, 33.2%. Husband is 2 to 3 years older than his wife. 2 to 3 years older, that's only 20%. But 1 to 3 years will make up 53.5%. 13.3% of husbands are 4 to 5 years older than their wife, so not many. When the husband is 6 to 9 years older than his wife, the percentage is 11.6. Husband is 10 to 14 years older than his wife, which we would call here in America a huge age gap of 10 to 14 years, only 4.8% in the United States. Husband 15 to 19 years older than his wife, a mere 1.6%. Husband 20 plus years older than wife, only 1%. Only 1%. Now, there is a thing here of women marrying younger men. If the wife is 2 to 3 years older than the husband, that happens about 6.5% of the time. Years ago, I knew a guy that couldn't have been older than 28 or 30, and I believe the woman he fell in love with was like 50, and they got married. And that's not for everyone, but that was for him. Wife 6 to 9 years older than husband, only 2.7%. And situations where the wife is 20 plus years older than the husband almost never happens, only 0.3% of that. Michael and Heidi, I agree. It presents separate problems, but I think not allowing divorce keeps a rein on the institution of marriage and culture instead of no fault divorce. Yeah, no fault divorce. I mean, I don't want to get into a thing on divorce here, or everybody will leave here, and I'm not prepared to do that. But no fault divorce, what a train wreck that has been. Final swan song for the Philippines if they pass divorce there. Well, I mean, there's rampant divorce here in this country, and some people, though, if you do it right, if you have those qualities I mentioned a while ago, the similarities and the right character, and you're willing to support each other's goals and so on, you know how to do conflict resolution, then I don't think you really have to. I don't think the statistics affect you if you do those things. That don't mean everybody is doomed. People doing certain things are more likely to be doomed than people that aren't doing certain things. Yeah, I hope that doesn't happen there. So Mr. E said, told me, you have to temper your expectations. It is perfectly reasonable to believe that you will land a 25 plus age Filipina, as both from a local and foreign perspective, they are less desirable, thus less competition. As I said, I was 53, my wife was 26, and she wasn't immature. We get along well, but that comes with wisdom, not blind luck. We're learning from our mistakes. We've both made them. Some guys seem to think the biggest age gap is what they should seek for, but there are a host of considerations with that. I would think it would be safer to marry a Filipina, as Mr. E thinks, at 25 plus. He says no old man will ever have a chance with these women as they have too many options. Now, I think here he is referring to someone in their 60s or higher, wanting a woman who is near her 20s, who would be a 7, 8, 9, or 10 that we mentioned earlier before we lost power. They want the most attractive ones, and looks are so subjective. We all know men who have much different tastes than we do when it comes to what a woman looks like, what is attractive to him. We might wonder, what are they thinking? And they're probably wondering the same thing about us when they find the women we find attractive. I've always liked short, petite women, especially with brown skin. Those characteristics appeal to me very much, and I enjoy looking at my wife every day. Now, recently, I forgot that my wife was working overtime, so I wasn't expecting her at work, and that we work at the same place. And no, contrary to some belief, I did not get her that job, as some assume. I actually had no idea how she was going to work there when she got here like she wanted to. But before I clocked in, I saw a woman through the glass into that production area, hairnet on, very small, cute, light brown skin, black hair, and she had her back to me. And so I couldn't help. I stared at her for a while, just kind of frozen, given the once over, and thought, wow, she's adorable. And she had her back turned to me. Then, I stopped thinking about it, and she turned around and looked at me for a second, and I was startled, thinking to myself that I better not stare, or she could get me in trouble. Then I realized it was my wife. It was Isa. I forgot she was at work, and there's other women there, different nationalities that kind of look like her, and I saw her, and obviously being married for 4 years, but I wasn't expecting her to be there, so it was just kind of a weird situation. Anyway, we laughed about it because it was my wife. So if you're in your 60s and are going all out for a young woman in her early 20s, sometimes that works out. I would not tell anyone to pursue that, but I would not discourage it or encourage it. You just have to, consider some practical things. I know this, though, that as my wife gets older, I know beyond a doubt she will always look good to me because of our history together and how much I appreciate her. The divorce laws that were recently passed allows OFWs, overseas Filipino workers, and foreigners to get a divorce in the Philippines. Well, that's something new. I need to learn more about that, just out of curiosity, because I don't think we have to be concerned about that. What I always heard was that the foreigner could get a divorce if they married in the Philippines, but the Filipina could not. So that may be something to consider for somebody that's new to looking for a Filipina. Although, look, if you live in fear, which is kind of part of a lack of trust, well, this could go bad or that could happen, you just have to get the best and the most advice you can get from different sources before you take the plunge. No fault divorce, BRAD, no fault divorce encourages bad behavior. It takes the institution of marriage and puts it in the hands of the state. The government has no business in marriage. It encourages cash and prizes. I agree, BRAD. It puts reliance on the state rather than the man. Michael agrees with you as well. They are then stuck with no legal recourse to move on in life and find some happiness. Infidelity is not a ground for women to seek an annulment. I wonder, yeah, it's a whole deal there. But what is, Mark, if you don't mind me asking, what is grounds for an annulment if they have such a thing in the Philippines? I always kind of thought if you had the money, you could get an annulment. So anyway, lots of considerations for the foreigner, lots of bad stories, people getting scammed. And no, I do not think it's the way some people portray it. Just get off the plane and it'll be like you're the Beatles and throngs of women throwing themselves after you, following you around, staring at you. I've been to the Philippines 3 or 4 times now. I never felt people were staring at me. Maybe the last time, but I don't know, maybe they were looking at my wife. I just never felt that. One of the things Mr. E said, we're talking about a male wall, he said, men need to realize that they have an expiration date too, where they will become invisible to younger women, both foreign and domestic. My thoughts, now that's a sobering thought. Before I looked for a Filipino in the Philippines, I was noticing that women here in America who were 50 or above were not looking for men who were 50 or above. According to the profiles that I was looking at, I once contacted a 56-year-old woman, and I was 53, near where I live several times, but I don't think she was interested in me. I was 53 and in really good shape. And that's when it struck me that I might never get married here, or would have to marry a woman who was older than I was. And, I'd been alone so long, that wasn't what I was looking for. Since I had been alone for years, that didn't appeal to me. Now, I married a Filipina who was 26 instead. I'm just blown away by that and very grateful. I had not been praying for a specific age, just for a wife, but I thought that to make up for lost time, I would prefer a woman who is perhaps as low as 40. And I thought, well, maybe that's being presumptuous of God, because I was 53 and she was 40, and these statistics here that we've read would show you that doesn't happen a lot. So, I thought, well, 40, maybe the intimacy can still be good for a while. And that seemed preposterous, I know. Then I married someone who was 26. Very happily married at that. So that has worked out well. But I work hard at being a good husband to her. She was more mature for her age than someone from America would likely be. She also has character. And character is something I don't find on a lot of men's lists when they're looking for a much younger wife, or when they're talking about what they're looking for. Being a bit older doesn't guarantee more maturity, but I agree with Mr. E that someone 25 plus is safer if there's a big age gap in that relationship. All of our opinions tonight are just opinions. Each individual must carefully consider the kind of woman that they are seeking and be fully aware of the reasons, and also be confident that they can be good to her. I appreciate the comments, everybody. Especially after I lost you the first time. Mark, or BRAD says, at Mark Metz, wouldn't it be on them for marrying someone who wasn't a quality person? Bob and Mr. E talk a lot, like we've been doing here, about screening before you marry. This goes for both men and women. Screening. Well, that's what the essentially what the dating process is all about. And you use your eyes, you use your mind, you communicate, you listen, you watch for red flags. And something I was going to mention earlier was, if the Filipina says, what age her preference is, she says, age doesn't matter, or 20 to 80, to me, that's an obvious red flag. If she says she's looking for somebody more reasonable, I mean, about her age, maybe, within 10, 20 years or something like that, 30 to 50, 30 to 55, something like that, I think that's a good sign. I don't know, my camera or my picture keeps getting brighter and duller, but hopefully we're still okay. My wife's age range, I just barely fit into that. So I know she wasn't looking for somebody that was 60 or 70 years old. Yeah, got to catch those red flags. Easier said than done, though. I mean, I just read the other day, men fall in love quicker than women do. And I bet they fall in love harder than women do, too. And if it's the beauty of a Filipina and you haven't had a relationship for a while, it can be intoxicating. And that's when you got to ask for help, run your situation through other people that, you trust to tell you the truth if there's something you're not seeing. Seems like it, Mark. Not against the law in the Philippines for a woman to fool around. It's illegal for a woman to do the same. Double standard. Man can fool around, expects to get away with it. His wife hasn't seen him for a while, gets involved with somebody he sees as an opportunity to extort money out of that man or throw him in jail. Even worse. Mark Metz, I guess I am hesitant to hold a woman in marriage for her whole life for a youthful mistake. Phil's a Phoenix. Okay, thanks for coming back. We all make youthful mistakes. Some of us make some of those youthful mistakes when we're older, and need to be learning from our mistakes. I certainly have. B-Rad, James Kelly, PV. I'm not saying it's easy, but that is what the red pill is for. You have no excuse not to know the score nowadays. Red pill is the knowledge, the truth, whether you like it or not, the reality of how things are, and then making the adjustments that we need to make. The blue pill is more like everything's fine, everything's roses, kind of being numb to it all, or overlooking it all, or blind to it all. Ignorance is bliss comes to mind. Black pill philosophy is just fatalism, never going to work out. Things are terrible and getting worse, and all women are bad, and so on and so forth. Hey, Big Rob, thanks for joining me. I'm doing pretty well, Big Rob. I'm glad I came back on, because I would have missed you, because we had a power outage or something and we lost everybody, and people are coming back. Big Rob, I like your channel. I just subscribed probably a few weeks ago. I watched one of your wrestling videos. Not want to get on your bad side. Talking about men hitting the wall here tonight, and I'm glad you could be here. Yeah, B-Rad, meet Big Rob. Yeah, I like that. I always liked wrestling. I think Isa asked me once, is that real? I loved wrestling when I was a kid. I couldn't go to bed Sunday night without getting my favorite sandwich, sitting on the edge of TV and looking at the black and white. I bought the wrestling magazines. But I tell you what, wrestling back then was more realistic for being, fake. Nowadays, it just seemed like it was just getting over the top, wrestling. So yeah, I like wrestling. Now, Mr. E's comment here was As every year you age, it gets harder to find a quality woman to start a family with. And he said, as smarter men lock those women down as soon as possible, and new men are entering the sexual marketplace, and you're getting older to boot. So the advice from Mr. E was to start looking for a wife in your late 20s or 30s if you want to settle down, as you're both in your physical prime and your earning potential is just starting to take off. It's getting dark in here. That's good advice, I think, here from Mystery. Take finding wife seriously in your late 20s to early 30s. The thing is, even that might be too late in many cases. At least in my experience here in America, when I was in my mid 20s, the well seemed like it was dry. Women either had a man, didn't care, or I don't know what. Now I'm going to turn lights on because it's getting a little dark. I just had a cortisone shot in my knee before I got here, and I have rooster grease injections too. That knee replacement is coming up soon. Just your passion. I love having people find love and have successful life abroad. Yeah, Big Rob has a channel. I think I've been real impressed with his what do you call it? Video editing technical skills. Yeah, I like Big Rob's channel. Check that out. You've probably got some wear and tear from all that wrestling too, just like I am. Yeah, wrestling now is not, it's not what it used to be. Back in the, you guys probably don't even know, maybe you do, back in the days of, Baron von Raschke, who was big, Ox Baker, the High Flyers. People in Minnesota would recognize Vern Gagne. There's other guys. Obviously, Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant, but boy, after that it was just steroid guys on steroids and just over the top stuff. It just kind of ruined it. It just got too extreme. You're moving to the Philippines. You going to make that move this year, Big Rob? Yeah, cockfighting instead of wrestling. A big advantage in cockfighting. You get to eat the loser. Well, it hasn't come to that yet in the world of wrestling. And there's also, I think, spider fights over there too. Although cockfighting sounds kind of gruesome. I don't think I'd be watching that. They have a wrestling promotion in the Philippines. I'll bet, Big Rob, I'll bet wrestling, they love boxing in the Philippines. I don't know what kind of exposure they've had to like all-star wrestling, or that's what it was called when I was younger. I don't know what they call it today. I loved watch wrestling, even when I knew it wasn't real. It's still entertaining. 3 big promotions there in the Philippines. I was invited to wrestle there once. I moved there. Well, watch for YouTube videos of Big Rob wrestling in the Philippines. I hope that, it's entertaining. There's no question about that. Now, I might have said wrestling was fake, but that doesn't apply to Big Rob. His wrestling is all real. If you see blood, chairs, hitting people and all this stuff, it's all real. Ric Flair. Well, yeah, Ric Flair. Ric Flair at that time, there's so many wrestlers going through my mind. I mean, there are such great characters. Yeah. AEW. Must be some kind of wrestling federation. Rule of thumb here again is have your serious prospects for a wife by 35 if you can. If you can. Now, another thing related to hitting the wall I wanted to talk about here, because I've noticed this for a while, and it really does probably apply to pretty much everybody, except for maybe wrestlers. And that is that men's testosterone levels are on decline. Men's testosterone levels are declined. If you're familiar with that, I'll put a link in the description box. As someone who's interested in men's health, this is a topic that I find very interesting. And I'll toss it in here because some men who are in their 50s and 60s and consider themselves players may not be the player they think they are. Even if not a player, here's one way men are hitting the wall and maybe not even realizing it. And the article is called "You're Not the Man Your Father Was." So let me read this here because I think this is significant. According to a recent report from JAMA, testosterone therapy among American men is on the rise. From 2010 to 2013, prescriptions more than doubled, which researchers partially attribute to ubiquitous drug marketing campaigns urging older men to boost low T levels. The swell of interest reflects a genuine physiological shift. Across the population, men today have less testosterone compared to men of the same age a generation ago. Asking why requires untangling a complex web of social, environmental, behavioral factors that are dismantling age-old ideas about masculinity and triggering real anxiety over changing gender roles. Now, studies show that men's testosterone levels have been declining for decades. Most prominent 2007 study in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism revealed a substantial drop in U.S. men's testosterone levels since the 1980s, with average levels declining by about 1% a year. Now, this means, for example, that a 60-year-old man in 2004 had testosterone levels 17% lower than those of a 60-year-old man in 1987. Another study of Danish men produced similar findings with double-digit declines among men born in the 60s compared to those born in the 20s. I bet if those stats were more up to date, the results would probably be even worse. And they cited increases in testicular cancer, sperm cancer sinking, musculoskeletal strength among young men is decreasing. Grip strength isn't necessarily a proxy for overall fitness, but it's a strong indicator of future mortality. There is more obesity in this country, and the foods we eat, pesticides, household products like phthalates and bisphenol A. Those type of chemicals are helping reducing men's testosterone levels. If you're interested in that, check out. It is a thing. It is happening. AEW is the WCW. New WCW. Do you think they will succeed? Probably wrestling. New sub. Yeah, check out Big Rob. Too many hormones in the environment. Lots of plastics act as estrogens. I don't personally, consume soy products. There are doctors that say that just, essentially is something that feminizes a man. And soy has been a big thing for, 20 years or so. But that might be something to avoid, something to look into. Vince is at his wits. Yeah, Vince McMahon. Yeah, I love wrestling, but that was entertaining. So here's my final thoughts as it gets so dark. Final thoughts. We talked about older men finding out there's more competition in the Philippines these days. Men are discovering it is becoming a myth that an older foreigner can saunter into the Philippines and attract Filipinas like flies on honey. If they haven't hit the male wall yet, they might not have any issues, but many of us have hit the wall. I think it is a good idea to accept that, if that's the case, and focus on other qualities than your sexual market value and work on your marriage market value. I think some men who have hit the wall in the West still have an opportunity in the Philippines, but we'll need to have good relationship skills, and I hope guys can learn some of that on my channel, Love Beyond the Sea. Many of us wanted to find a wife by 35 and did not want to settle. We're still single. For those guys, I'd still consider the Philippines for a wife because I think that your chances in America, at least, aren't quite so good. In fact, I think the point of diminishing returns is earlier than, let's say, 35. I think a man does have a chance even after hitting the wall if he looks in the Philippines, but he better get serious because we seem to hit the wall harder each year. Hitting the wall won't hurt as much having a Filipino wife. The Philippines was my last chance but I was able to find love beyond the sea. And that's what it's all about, and keeping that love beyond the sea with you. Uh, big B. Rad, James, Kelly, Big Rob agreed. I hope they succeed. We need another big promotion for wrestling to go to and work, and hopefully the Khans can pull it off. Whoever the Khans is, Khans. Yeah, wrestling is, you know, I don't. I am not ashamed to say I watched a lot of wrestling when I was a kid, and we all practiced all the moves, So I want to thank everybody for coming here. Um, some thoughts tonight maybe were a little sobering, um, but that's reality. Tony Khan is the owner of AEW. I'll have to look that up, see what you guys are talking about there. But good luck to you, Big Rob, with moving Philippines. I assume you have some experience Philippines, know what you're getting into. My first time was 2015 when I went to marry my wife, and it had a profound effect on me. And I hear a lot of guys that marry Filipinas go to the Philippines for the first time, and they say, "Wow, you know, their heart goes out to them for some of the conditions they're in." His father's richer than Vince. That helps, doesn't it? Um, so thank you everyone for joining tonight, talking about aging, hitting the male wall. You got to take care of yourself. You can't keep yourself from smashing into the wall. I mean, you're going to hit the wall, but I guess if you take good care of yourself, you won't hit it quite as hard or quite as bad. The Khan family also own the Jacksonville Jaguars. Well, I'm sure they can sink a lot of money into that venture then. So, as Tom and Ruth, Philippine Adventures always does, I encourage people to check out others' channels. And I believe other people here have channels. I think maybe they're just getting started. I don't know if everyone has videos, but Big Rob caught my eye. I think it was a video about Kristen Filipina, and I liked his work on his you call that video editing stuff. I have no such skills. I'm always envious of people that can do things like that. So thanks everybody for being here, and I think in 2 weeks we're going to come back and talk about submission. I got a request to do that video. It'd been on my mind for a while, but once I got a request for it, I thought, okay, we'll do it, because I don't want to be afraid to talk about anything that's important, because I think probably we all think that a woman should be, or a wife should be, submissive to her husband, and we're going to talk about that. But there can be some confusion of what that really means. So hopefully in 2 weeks you guys will be back and talk about that. Thanks, B-Rad and Mark, and the people that were there before. Big Rob, hey, I'm glad, Big Rob, you got in here at the end. And hopefully I'll be able to see you in the future. I'll be checking out some of your videos. Looks like some other people will too. So I hope everybody here can find love beyond the sea if they have not. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for your comments. And we'll do this again in a couple of weeks. So good evening.